against racism of South Africa, where he had the fight against GBV being declared a second pandemic by government
in grade 7 changed her life forever, but she's learned to live.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the show Breaking the Silence, where we tackle serious social and psychological issues that affect our beloved nation. I am your host, Langelihle Dlamini, and today we will be discussing why gender-based violence has become a part of our everyday realities. And joining me today will be a human rights and gender activist, Ms. Lomcebo Dlamini, alongside Professor Sugati, and later we will be joined by Police Officer Ngampalala, who will share his insights on the matter. Thank you for joining us today and taking the time out of your busy schedules to come on the show. I'd like to start with you, Ms. Dlamini. Why do you think gender-based violence has become so normalized in our country, and what do you think is actually fueling it?
First of all, thank you for the invitation. I think this is an important issue, and it is an important conversation for the youth to be part of. If we are going to deal with gender-based violence in this country, everyone has a role to play. Now, you ask about why is GBV becoming part and parcel of our society. In other words, the issue of normalization, because really normalization is about something not seeming strange, something being acceptable, something being not such a big deal, something that we expect to happen. And why is this the case when we come to GBV? It's really an intersection of a lot of factors. First of all, it is around the patriarchal nature of our society, where there is a sense of perceiving males as superior to women. There is a sense of assigning gender roles to men, to women, and those gender roles not being valued in the same way. And so that brings in the issue of power relations. Who has power? Who has, in many instances, physical power? Who has financial power? Who has the power of status? And that power creates the environment where there can be abuse of that power, and therefore there can be that experience of GBV. So, for example, you will find that a person looking for employment, they refer to it sometimes as carpet interviews. So the employer will be in a position of power, but the person seeking employment will be in an inferior position. And so the abuse of that power allows GBV to take place. Our social norms. How do we raise our children? How do we raise boys and girls? Do we raise them to respect each other? Do we raise them to understand that mutual respect also means dealing with conflict in a non-violent way? How do we teach them about dealing with conflict? What do they see? Because part of socializing and bringing up the next generation is what they see. Do they see their parents and guardians fighting as a way to resolve problems? Or do they see them resolving things in a constructive way? When they go to school, when they go to the workplace, when they go to church, what example is being modeled by the adults around them? And then the other issue is impunity. When people get away with GBV, something has happened, an incident has happened, and it's trivialized. Sometimes some people will say, but that's part and parcel of being in a relationship. You can expect to be hit once in a while. If it doesn't hit you, it doesn't love you. That's part and parcel of being in a marriage. You have to persevere. So what ideas are we planting in our socialization process? And then, of course, ultimately, how are we equipping our children and ourselves to deal with the stresses that come with life? Because life comes with stresses. So, how are we teaching our children and ourselves to cope with stress? Do I take my anger of losing a job out on you because I'm frustrated? Do I take my issues that I'm battling with in a way where I shoot my wife and children and then I shoot myself and commit suicide? So it's becoming normalized, one, because of the behaviors that we are displaying. And we are giving the suggestion that it's not a big deal. It's just something we need to do. It's just something that's in society and we have to persevere with it.
Now, what do you think are the biggest challenges that victims face whenever they try to speak up or get justice?
I think there are a couple of challenges. Some of the challenges are internal to the survivor. Some of them are external. The first one that is internal, I think, is shame. How could this happen to me? I'm a young woman who's got it together. I'm a young man who's ambitious. How could I be the one who is the subject of a beating, or a swearing, or how could it happen to me? So there's that shame. And that shame is amplified because as a society, there is a tendency to blame the victim. So, for example, where were you when this happened to you? Were you in a club? Were you out with friends at night? Where were you? What were you wearing? What does that have to do with it? So there's a sense of blaming the victim. So internally, there's shame. There is also the issue of not trusting the system. If I report to my family, will I be taken seriously? If it's a relative, will anyone take action? If I go to the police, will I get assistance? If I go to the courts, will my matter be addressed? Unfortunately, we have a very low rate of report. And part of the low rate of reporting is because people have been disappointed by the structures that they thought were going to help them. And therefore, they would rather sit with and just say, well, I'll deal with it. And some people, unfortunately, that takes them to the point of suicide where they feel, I've tried everything else. Nothing is working. It's either I remain in this hell of abuse on a daily basis or I exit it. And all of those are negative, right? So there's the internal, then there's the external. Our institutions, whether they be families, whether they be bobandlanqane at the community level, whether they be police, whether they be the courts, our institutions need capacity building. Each institution has got duties that it's expected to perform. But do they have the capacity? The capacity in terms of human resources, the capacity in terms of knowledge when there's someone in front of you who has experienced GBV? Do they have the capacity in terms of equipment? Is the equipment there? Do the police officers have cars to come to the scene? Does the healthcare system have the necessary pills and treatment and counseling to assist a survivor? So I think the internal and the external factors need to be addressed so that a survivor knows that it's okay to report and they will be supported along the journey of dealing with the issue.
Thank you so much for that insightful pitch. Professor Sugati, is there anything you'd like to add on what Ms. Dlamini has shared?
Thank you, Ms. Lamini, for the question. Just to add on what Ms. Lamini has said, I think as a society, if something is defined as a crime, there should be no room that we normalize that thing. Mm-hmm. We should not allow anyone, I don't care who they are, to have the case withdrawn just because they are somebody we consider superior. They must allow the law to take its course, because to the victim or survivor, it's like, why did they even go and report? And it makes them feel like they are belittled. So there is no way. We should just allow the law to take its course and punish anyone who has committed that gender-based violence. I don't care what form it was. And that's it. And the judgment must be fitting to the type of offense that was carried out.
And now we are going to dive into the emotional and mental effects that gender-based violence has on its victims. Because behind every story, there's a person dealing with trauma and pain. And now I will go to Professor Sugati. Over to you, Professor. How does gender-based violence affect the mental health of its victims?
Okay, gender-based violence affects the mental health of the victim in a number of ways. One of the effects of gender-based violence is the feeling of depression. You feel that you are a non-person and you feel hopeless, you feel sad, up to a point where you may think there's no point continuing to live. Okay? And that's why we end up having a lot of suicides, okay, because of the depression, okay? If you don't commit suicide, you lose interest in a number of things that previously you used to enjoy living with, okay? It may be even cooking for your children. You may find that you don't have the energy to cook for the children, okay? Because when, let's say, it is your spouse that has been beating you, you just don't think they appreciate the effort you put behind all the action, that you let the family go on as such. And besides the depression that people feel when they are victims of gender-based violence, which unfortunately tends to be intimate partner violence, someone who should be protecting you. You feel like you are isolated. No one cares about you, because even the person who is supposed to care about you is the one that is inflicting pain on you, okay? And it is also bad on the children if you have children, because that's what we are socializing them to. That in order to solve problems, we have to be violent to one another. And we all learn through socialization. And then for some individuals, to numb that pain of being violated, people resort to substance use. More often than not, okay? So that even when you beat them, they will not feel that pain because the nerves are numb and things like that. And even if you talk about it to someone else, you also have that sense of low self-esteem, because people, instead of telling the perpetrator that they did something wrong, they will ask you, the victim, what is it that you did to let the person do this to you? Okay? And that makes you feel bad about yourself. Okay? And then when the person comes in, the mind has a way of replaying that episode. You have flashbacks. If it is your husband or your boyfriend that beats you, the minute they walk in, the mind says, oh, it's coming again. Okay? Or when they talk to you, you get so frightened and startled because you don't know what next they will do to you. Okay? Such that you want them not to be around, yet you want them to be around because they are your husband or your boyfriend and things like that. Okay? So gender-based violence has a lot of mental and emotional side effects on the perpetrator, when we're on the victim, and they don't know really what to do. Even when they walk, they will try and walk on tiptoes because they don't know whether their heels, if they are wearing heels, will be said to be making a loud noise and annoying the person who is in the house, okay, and is the perpetrator and things like that. So it is very bad. It makes you feel like you are less than a human being. Yeah. You can't do things that you would like to do and enjoy them, okay? You feel sad, you feel depressed, and things like that. And you can't trust the partner or the person you live with.
From a psychological point of view, how can we help victims heal from their trauma as well as change perpetrators' behavior?
Okay. One of the things that we could do as a society is that we shouldn't normalize something that is wrong. It should never, never, ever be made to look like it's something that's supposed to happen. Beating someone is a crime, and therefore no one should be beaten. It doesn't matter what the circumstances are. Also, we must know that when we do or we carry out the gender-based violence, we are modeling bad behavior on the children that we may have in the house. And as they grow up, they will think that that's the normal way of dealing with their own spouses, which is wrong. So a lot of counseling is needed for both the victim and the perpetrator to understand that it is wrong, it can never be right. No one should be beaten. No one should be beaten. Because it's not only them that are being affected, but also the children they are raising are copying that bad behavior, that the only way to deal with an issue is through being violent, which is not wrong, right, okay, in our society.
Thank you both again for joining us on Breaking the Silence. Your insights have really shedded light on the depth of this issue. And now we will go on a short ad break, but after that, we will have Officer Ngampalala who will be joining us to share his insights. Don't go anywhere.
If you're being abused, speak up. Call the police. End GBV.
Welcome back to Breaking the Silence. And now we are joined by Officer Ngampalala who will be sharing his insights. Welcome to the show, Officer. I'd like to ask, there have been rumors that have been circulating that men who come and report gender-based violence questions are laughed at. What do you have to say about those rumors?
Thank you so much for the invite. Coming to your question, I can say, first, we are sorry for those people affected by these unfortunate incidents. But we as police officers, we are not expecting such behaviors from our police officers because they are trained, rigorously trained, to maintain or to maintain a professionalism in their work in every situation they come across. So we as police officers from Domestic Violence Child Protection, we are now visiting communities and other organizations, encouraging members of the public to report GBV regardless of their gender. So we now, as police officers, we have observed that visiting the communities and the organizations, males have started to report GBV, and those cases are being taken to court and now dealt with by the courts. So the issues of being laughed at are no longer there. We encourage members to report GBV police station. But if ever such a thing can happen, we always say those persons must report that matter to the immediate supervisor, can be the police commander of that police station, that will deal with that officer that have done such a bad thing.
What steps are police making to try and ensure that every gender-based violence case is handled fairly?
Thank you for the question. What the police officers have done, in every police station, there is the domestic violence department. When a person comes at the front desk to report a GBV cases, we encourage that person to ask the domestic violence officers who will just strictly attend to him or her based on the issues that he has been before the police officers. So he will be dealt with by the police officers from the DCS department, and that matter will be taken to the police and straight to court without involving any other person. So there's no need to be afraid of reporting the issues at the police station because you'll be treated fairly. And at the same time, you may ask to be treated by a male or a female, depending on which gender you ask.
Thank you for joining us on Breaking the Silence, Officer Ngampalala, and sharing your insights on the matter.
Thank you so much for being part of this conversation. I would like to encourage the public to report any GBV matters through 999 in our police numbers, and that matter will be dealt with accordingly. Thank you so much.
As we wrap up today's discussion, know that turning the tide against gender-based violence starts with us. Whether it's through educating ourselves or supporting the survivors, we all play a role in making a difference. A heartfelt thank you once again to all of our guests, and to our viewers, thank you for tuning in. This has been Breaking the Silence, signing out.